In this video, I'm going to model a ditch intersection for a V-shaped ditch. First, I want to make sure that I'm in my Open Roads modeling workflow and that I've selected an active feature definition. I'm going to use ditch baseline and make sure that my toggle is on for use active feature definition. So I'll go to lines, lay out a simple horizontal alignment. I'm going to snap to the center line of that trapezoidal ditch. Next step is to create a profile for this alignment. So I'll select it. From the flyout menu, open a profile model. And I'll change the exaggeration here to something smaller. Now I want to tie this profile for the side ditch into the profile for the main ditch so that if the profile of the main ditch changes, the side ditch will remain attached to it and change along with it. To do that, I'm going to use what's called a profile intersection point. So I'll go up here to the vertical tool group under profile creation, profile intersection point. It's asking me to locate the element to show intersection. That's the horizontal alignment for the side ditch. And then locate element which intersects, which is the center line, the bottom of bank. I'm going to tie my ditch into the bottom of bank line for the trapezoidal ditch. So I'll select that. You can see my profile window. I've got a profile intersection point there. And that point is dynamically connected to the profile for this main ditch. If this profile moves, this profile point will move with it. So anything I tie to it will move. So I'm going to go ahead now and add my vertical profile. Go up to the vertical tools and put in my start point. I'm going to snap to the beginning, snap to this point. That's my first tangent. My second tangent, snap to that point again, and then press my right arrow key to change the inputs here from length to slope. I'm going to enter minus 10% and then snap to the end. Then confirm that I have the proper snap indicators. Next step is to join these two tangents together. I need to complex them together. So I'll go up to complex geometry, complex by elements, select them. You can see that it's selected both elements, and then data point to accept. And then don't forget to set that as the active profile. And now that I've done that, I have both horizontal and vertical, and so now it appears in the 3D model view. I neglected to give these alignments and names, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Select that, bring up the properties, and then just give this a proper name. Something like off the L line, 32 plus 89 on the left side of the road. That's the horizontal. Go to the vertical, do the same thing. Now they're both named. Now that I have horizontal and vertical alignment for my side ditch, I'm ready to make a contour model for it. Go up to corridors, make sure that I have a template library loaded, and I do. So I can go to new corridor, follow the prompt to locate the corridor baseline. So I'll select the horizontal alignment, reset to select the active profile. I'm going to accept that as the corridor name. Move my mouse a little bit, and that will bring up the next prompt to select the template that I want to use. I'll press the Alt down arrow key to bring up the Pick Template dialog, and I'm going to select something from the category of head and tail ditches. And I'm going to use a trapezoidal PSRM, so a ditch with a PSRM lining. I'll say OK. And then I'll data point to confirm that selection. I need to identify the start and stop stations. I'm going to apply this template to the entire length of the corridor, but I don't necessarily need to do that at this step. But I'm going to press Alt to lock to the start, data point to accept, press Alt again to lock to the end, data point to accept. And the last step is to specify a drop interval, and I'll accept 1 foot. And that will process the corridor, which then appears in the 3D model. Now, this comes in by default as a trapezoidal ditch. I want to make this a V ditch. But before I do that, I want to create a cross-section view of this corridor. So open up a window, select the corridor from the flyout menu, go to Open Cross-Section Model. And now that I have one in there, I can select the corridor, get my slider, and bring that down to about the middle of the corridor so I can see the effect of the changes that I'm going to make. So I want to change this to a V-shaped ditch, and I also want to change the slope of my lining so that it matches the 2-to-1 slope of the cut slopes. So I'll do that with parametric constraints. Select my corridor, and then go to create parametric constraint. Parametric constraints are very simple. You just need to specify over what range you're making the change, select the constraint that you want to change, and give it its new values. So I'm going to leave this as locked to start and end because I want to apply the change to the entire ditch. The constraint label that I want to change is the bottom width. And sometimes you have to click a couple of times to get this to take effect. There we go. So it comes out as default as 4 feet. I want to change this to a 0 value for a V ditch. And then just data point to accept those values. And now it changes to a V ditch. Next step, change the lining slope. By default, it's 4-to-1 or 25%. And change this to 50% for a 2-to-1 slope. Data point to accept those inputs. And that's done. And now it looks like what it's supposed to look like. Now what remains to be done is to clean up the intersection. To clean up the intersection, I'm going to use a technique called corridor clipping. I need to create some clipping shapes and then use those shapes to clip the corridor and clean up the intersection. And these shapes can be ruled to features in the corridor models so that the clipping shapes will update as you make revisions. So before I do this, I'm going to turn off some things that'll help me clean up this view. I'm going to turn off the level associated with corridor graphics. And I'm also going to change my feature definition because I want to put these clipping shapes on a construction level so they don't plot. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and create my clipping shapes. Go to Geometry, Horizontal, and Complex by PI. Now I'm going to set my snap mode to intersection snap. First, I'll create the clipping shape for the side ditch. I want to clip out everything that is projecting into the main ditch. I'm going to start by snapping to the intersection of the 2 top of bank lines, the top of bank line from the main ditch and the top of bank line for the side ditch. I'll start there. And then I'm going to snap to the intersection point of where the center line of my V-shaped ditch comes in and intersects with the bottom of bank of the main ditch. I'll snap there, come back up here, snap to the intersection of the 2 top of bank lines. Now I'm going to come over here and I want to leave enough room to accommodate revisions. So I'll come out here at about a 45-degree angle, snap out here, and then close the shape and reset to complete. So that's my clipping shape for the side ditch. The next one is to create a clipping shape for the main ditch. And I basically want to clip out this area here that's being intersected by the side ditch. So I'll do the same thing as before. I'm going to snap to the same points, intersection of the top of bank lines, intersection of the center line and the bottom bank line, intersection of the top of bank lines. And then I'm going to put out just a random point out here beyond the top of bank of the main ditch to make sure that I'm capturing the entire length of it. And then close the shape and reset to complete. So now I have two shapes. And notice that I'm getting snap indicators at these points. So when if I make revisions, then these clipping shapes will respond dynamically. Now that I have my clipping shapes, I'll go back and turn on some of these levels that I turned off before. So now that I have the clipping shapes, I need to add them as corridor references. So I'll go up to corridors, corridor clipping, and add clipping reference. The prompt is to select corridor to be clipped. So I'll do the side ditch first. Select that, and then select the clipping reference. And then reset to complete and watch the 3D model view when I accept this. So now that has been clipped off using that clipping shape. And now I need to get rid of this triangular piece of the main ditch. So I'll go through the same process, corridor clipping, add clipping reference. This time I'll select the main corridor, main ditch corridor, and then this clipping reference. And reset to complete. And now I have the completed intersection model. And note this is dynamic. So I'll turn off a few levels here. Turn off the ditch base and the center line so I can get to my base geometry. I can change the alignment of my ditch, and you can see that it updates. And you can make any other changes that you need to make. You can make changes to your profile. You can actually change the connection point here, where the side ditch connects to the main ditch, and that will update. If your changes are very significant, moving the connection point, you may have to update the locations of these freestyle points that you added out here that aren't snapped to anything. But other than that, the ditch model will respond to any ditch revisions that you make.